common application. You can apply to basically every medical school in the country, MD program in the country. The DO programs have a separate, what's the DO program? AA COMAS. Similar thing, common application. Besides the schools in Texas, because Texas is its own country. So Texas has their own little system if you want to apply. And so I did not apply to any schools in Texas because I'm not paying an extra several $100s to do it. So that's that. Again, I talked to you about this yesterday. MSAR, reading. This is going to help you in the admissions process. So when you're going through the application cycle and you're kind of going through schools and you're trying to figure out what you want in a school, this will help you, okay? It's as simple as that. There shouldn't be any questions about that. You're going to find that when you go through it, use your mentors a lot. It's a process. It's applications. You have to have money to, if you don't, you're going to end up having to stay places. You have to think about finances. If your parents come from, like my parents, it's based on your parents' income, no matter how old you are. But if your parents make less than a certain amount of money, your first however many applications are free, like 15 or something. And then all the secondary applications are free. But if they're not, you're looking to pay for just applying a couple $1,000s. And then, but there are grants and things out there, so you should look for the money. And you can borrow money. So you should also go to the financial aid office. You can borrow money for this specific process. So you would take out loans, but it can be done. Also, traveling to interviews. People that get into medical school are lucky enough to get interviews. Look to your mentors. You have advisors. Like these people are physicians. They make a lot of money. When they're investing, I don't care who they are, they make a lot of money. A lot of money. Seriously. People complain about how primary care physicians don't get paid, but I'd say $180,000 is doing a hell of a lot better than the average person. You know what I mean? And it's a lot better. I mean, how many people here would like to make $13,000 a month? $13,000 a month. I think you pay your bills without a problem. So use those people and say, look, if you have a problem, don't be afraid to ask. Don't let finances stand in the way between you and doing this. If your parents can't help you and those other people, they might be able to help you, let you borrow the money or whatever. I definitely would do that. It's something like I told you I did. I didn't do it for the application process, but I did it as a move. And I just casually brought it up. And people, if they like you, they'll just offer. Like, oh, if you need anything, just like, oh, really? Okay, I need $5,000. All right. I was hoping you would say that. All right. So, no problem. So think about that. All right. So that's the application process. I'm not going to waste any time on that because you will know it when you go through it. The interview. All right. I love this movie, by the way. Hilarious. So, the interview. So we're going to talk about the interview. The interview is a process, you're lucky enough to get a certain amount of interviews. I don't know what that number is, but 5, 6, 7, it's very likely you're going to get into medical school. It'd be unlikely that you went to that many interviews unless you really suck at interviewing. But you're not going to suck at interviewing because you've gone to this thing, right? So one good thing I remember they did here, so they did a panel interview, a couple of different types of interviews. Here they did a panel interview, like the pre-med committee got together, they sat down in front of you, they asked you questions. They gave us a very cool way to do things. Like they ask you a question and you had these like 10 to 15 experiences that were like core experiences that you want to talk about in your interview that you think will impress people, but it's like it's like something medically related that was really interesting or whatever. So you think about those a lot, and those things should just roll off the tongue. Those things, and then a kind of intro, like who are you? Tell me about yourself. You're always going to get asked that, so you should just know exactly what you're going to say, like right off the bat, and just say it. Make it sound good. All right, so those things are kind of the basics, fundamentals. You need to know those things. And then basically when someone asks you a question, without being you can't be forced with it. They can't ask you what's your favorite book and be like, oh, my favorite book is Moby Dick. And by the way, that reminds me about when I was in the hospital. No, it doesn't work, all right? So, it has to be genuine. Can't seem forced, but you kind of sneak it in there, all right? It's a great tool that they teach you. So I would really highly suggest kind of embracing that method of some question answering, kind of sneaking in something awesome that wasn't really that well talked about in your application. It wasn't really that well talked about in your personal statement, because you want to add new data. You don't want to talk about old data. Old data is everything in your personal statement, everything in your application. We've already read it. We're not going to be able to write any new notes down that aren't already in there if you don't talk about anything new. So you need to add new data, okay? And the interview is just that one piece of data that helps us decide who we're going to accept and who we're not. All right, so the interview, step one. Put your jacket on. So, all right, just kidding. All right, you don't do that. You don't walk in and take your jacket off. No, just kidding, I'm just messing with you. All right, so step one, dress. So this might seem like common sense to a lot of people, and it is common sense to a lot of people, but it's not common sense to everyone. So, like my friend here is wearing. Introduce yourself.
I'm Matt Albright. I'm a senior at ODU and just got accepted to medical school.
All right. He didn't even need me. So, as you can see, Matt's dressed very dapper, right? He has three-piece. No, not everybody can pull off a three-piece. Don't everybody try that. All right, three-piece is tough. I can't do the three-piece. All right, so he's slender. I'm not as slender as he is. I mean, ain't one burger. So anyway, but gray suit. Gray suit is nice. Don't do light gray. All right, you can even do a couple shades lighter than this or darker. So the key is dark suits. Okay, women, men, women don't wear dresses. Don't wear a suit. Okay, dark suit. Okay. Usually, certain people can pull off these like plaid shirts. It looks a little flashy. You don't want to be flashy in your interview, okay? I mean, it looks nice. I might look nice, but I probably wouldn't wear this in an interview. Actually, I probably would wear a solid color shirt. Okay, you don't want to attract too much attention. You don't want to wear a bunch of jewelry. You don't want to attract attention to yourself. If you have a Rolex, good for you. Don't wear it. You know what I mean? Seriously, I'm not joking about that. Don't do that. Okay, just be kind of like demure and kind of just, so you can people can focus on you. Okay, so this is people say it and I used to think this is so totally crazy. It's actually to make people to not draw any attention to yourself. So you're trying to fit in to where no attention is drawn to other things but your application. Okay? So suits for women and men. Women have the option of pantsuits and dress suits, but period, end of story, you need to wear a suit, dark suit. Black, blue, gray, no browns, no tans, no none of that. Although I love tan linen suit, I love it. I have a couple tan linen suits, but you can't wear them in an interview. Okay? Yes?
What about wedding jewelry?
Yes, your wedding ring, of course.
Well, you said about not being flashy. What about now? I mean, I'm just normal, but like, what about?
Yeah, no, still. You're married, I mean, come on. Who's gonna... No, nobody's gonna begrudge you because because your husband's a hedge fund manager. All right? Maybe he'll give me a loan. I'll let you in if he gives me a loan. How about that? All right, so dress to impress. All right? That's simple. All right, mock interview time. All right, so I've reviewed his application at this point. I've reviewed his... So we're going to sit down and we're just going to do this. And we chose the back because we've been giving the front too much love. So, all right, so this is how this goes. So he walks in. And they just say, come in the door, right? So basically the way this usually works is that usually there's not a board of people the way they train you here. There are a couple. EDMS does a board of people. There are panel interviews. But, he'll walk in. My secretary will come outside, or I'm a medical student. Usually as a medical student, I'm dressed the way I was yesterday. Like baseball cap, T-shirt, whatever, because we're students, like we're busy doing other things. Or now that I'm in the hospital, what I do is wearing scrubs or whatever. But he comes in to whatever office I'm working in. Say I'm in surgery. He'll come into the Department of Surgery office, and I'll have an office over there kind of scheduled for me. And he'll introduce myself, and I'll.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Matt Albright.
Matt, how are you? Come on in. So Matt comes on in, sits down. Right now he waits though for me to ask him to have a seat. All right. So I'm serious. These are things that I, as a child, was not taught. I was just not taught these things. But a lot of people, this is an integral part of their culture. They understand these things because this is how they grew up, steeped in tradition. So I asked him to have a seat, and then we sit. And you notice he unbuttoned his jacket. These are all important things. So you like, as a woman or a man, you unbutton your jacket before you sit down. It sounds weird, right? It sounds like, who cares about that? People care. For whatever reason, it's so stupid. I don't care. But people do care. Also, another thing with the dress, the tie should not touch your belt, guys, fellas. The tie should not touch your belt. It should come up above an inch or two above your belt, or you could wear a bow tie, and everyone loves a bow tie. I love a bow tie. Everybody loves a bow tie. And the thing is that people will you'll always have someone interviewing you with a bow tie, and they'll just think you're God's gift to earth because you also love bow ties. So, guys, I said bow tie is a strong move. I did bow tie all through the interview cycle. Being real. Bow tie. You heard it here first. All right. So, nice, clean, polished shoes. Great. And so usually people sit like this. I got sit like this. But he's doing right? He's doing right. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a senior at Old Dominion University. I was initially a transfer student. I started off at community college. I'm a first generation college student, so I had to kind of start at community college and work my way into a four-year school because I put myself through school the whole way. So I was self-funded through the process and had to work full-time to kind of commute back and forth and keep myself afloat while in school.
There you go. So he started at community college. He told us a little bit about himself. So he had this is short and sweet because you want to talk about the good stuff, right? But he talked about some good stuff. Talked about adversity, being a first-generation college student. It's interesting, right? He went to community college first. Not everyone does that goes to medical school. Most people don't. So that's good. But he talked about being self-funded. I mean, people love that. They eat that up. He didn't say where he was from. He might add, like, there's a lot of things that normal people, people say in normal conversations. Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm from Michigan, whatever. But that was very good. That was very good. That's the way you do it. He showed you exactly how you do it. Because you have 15 minutes with this person, right? You don't want to tell them your whole life story. You want to make it about that, like 60 to 90 seconds. Boom. This is what I say when people ask me to tell me about themselves. Okay? Does that make sense? Good. All right. So, I see. So, tell me a little bit. So, you went to community college, and while you were there, what was that experience like?
That was a little bit different for me. It was my first time in a college situation, and I struggled quite a bit at first. I actually almost flunked out of community college. I started off by failing biology, and have since turned that around. I'm now going to be graduating cum laude in biology from Old Dominion University. But I had to work full-time nights, so I got off at 7 a.m. and then had to go straight to class and find a way to stay awake.
That must have been difficult. Yeah, so when you were doing all of that, and you were working nights, you were EMT, right? Is that what I read?
Correct. I initially started off as a secretary in the emergency room and then transitioned into a...
So you went from a secretary to being an EMT. So how did you make that transition?
I was lucky enough to impress a few people that were important when I first started there, and they saw something in me that I don't even think I had seen at that point. And they were willing to pay for me to go to school, so they actually paid to put me through the EMT courses and train me to be a technician.
Wow, that's impressive. You see that? That's like, and he knew he was going to be able to talk about that. And he knew that, like, I was going to ask him about, because he knew, he didn't do that well at community college. But he made it all back up on the back end. So he already knew the things to say. And that's going to sound impressive. This person has shown resilience. They've seen adversity. They've had to do things the hard way. They didn't even entertain the idea of being a physician at that time. And start off as a secretary. Drake said it best, start from the bottom, right? I mean, we love starting from the bottom. Period. We love starting from the bottom. All right, so tell that story if that's you. All right? All right, so then you went to Old Dominion. So what changed? Kind of how did you get to a point where you were, doing so well? Because look, you had like a 3.9 something at Old Dominion, and you didn't do so hard because you were working. Kind of what changed in that time?
It was more so just trying to find that balance and being able to manage work and school at the same time. I actually didn't drop down to part-time or anything along those lines. I even took on more responsibility. So it was more of just figuring out what I needed to do to be successful in school and making sure that I focused on those things and was first and foremost a student because that's where I needed to put my efforts.
That sounds great. So what are your clinical interests?
I've been in the emergency room for 9 years, so that's definitely an area that I'm drawn to. But now that I have a little bit more free time and have been working with other physicians in shadow, and I've gotten a chance to do orthopedic surgery and see other areas, and I'm starting to realize that when I thought I was only going to be an ER doctor, now I'm open to almost any practice. So it's more just trying to find out where I'm happy and where I best fit.
Can you tell me about the kind of experience and all of that healthcare stuff that impacted you most?
The biggest thing for me was being fully immersed in it. I was scared when they decided to train me to be an ER technician. It was a little bit different for me because I already knew these people for 2 and 3 years. So I had a little bit more on my shoulders than just being good at what I was doing, because I also had to impress them for the fact that they saw something in me and were willing to train me. So I had a little bit of extra anxiety over that. So I wanted to make sure I was good. And when you first start, you're not good. So that scared me because I felt like I was going to be letting people down. But along the way, I kind of found my niche. And the biggest thing that really made me feel like I had arrived, so to speak, was I was coming in at the point where I was just about to finish my orientation. And I wasn't even on the clock yet. I just happened to be walking down the hall, and the physician yelled out for someone to come help. And I ran in and immediately recognized, without even talking to him, that the patient was in cardiac arrest, and started CPR while he worked on the airway. And luckily enough, actually, before he even intubated the patient and put in the airway in, his heart started beating while I was doing CPR, and that was kind of the first time that I felt a heart
You saved someone's
rebeat.
life.
I did.
Wow, what did that feel like for you?
That was a unique experience. That's something I would say you never forget. I don't know exactly how to describe it other than powerful.
Wow. So he's doing a great job. If you guys see, like, he's done this once or twice, right? He's getting to these questions, but he's throwing in a lot of very meaningful things. He's harkening back to the adversity and, being timid, and he shows some humility by saying, when you start off, you're not that great. And so, humility is a very important thing, and you don't see it in everyone. People are very capable and competent people and who have done well most of their lives. And so a lot of times people don't make accommodations. They don't say, okay, well, I wasn't that great at everything. You know what I mean? And so, showing humility is really important in an interview. And then he got to kind of throw in there how he saved someone's life without seeming like he was bragging about it. You know what I mean? He talked about how it impacted his life. Very well done. I think that's textbook. That's the way you do it. But that's the kind of thing. So then what made you decide you wanted to become a physician?
For me, it was more just trying to find myself. So initially, I was going to go into the military, much like yourself. I actually was accepted to the nuke program, and that's where I was going. I was ready to go. Went home and told my dad, and he told me to pack my stuff and get out. And
I had the same experience, by the way. But opposite. I was going to go to college, and my mom said, pack your stuff and get out. But I had the same experience.
He was a Marine for 23 years, and he felt like he did his service so that his kids could go to school and have the opportunities that weren't afforded to him. So at that point, when I decided that I was going to go into the military in his footsteps, he wasn't so happy. So it was a lot of last minute figuring out a way to make the college thing work because I hadn't planned on it. The only test I had taken to get into school was the ASVAB to get into the military. So there was that transition period of going to community college and figuring out what I wanted to do, and it was mostly happenstance that I got a position in the emergency room to pay my way through and really found a passion for it once I was immersed in it.
Wow. Anyway, we're going to stop there. So I would ask other questions, lots of other questions, but I think it was well demonstrated in this admissions process. That's how you do it. He's good. He's really good at this. So this is how you do it. I didn't tell him what I was going to ask him. I just asked him questions. This is really how you do it, but you get experience. So you do these mock interviews. Mock interviews will help you. You do these over and over because he wasn't like this when he interviewed in the first place. No question, he wasn't. People don't get like this until you've been a seasoned interviewer. Or unless you just have the gift of gab, some people do. But you just get better and better and better, and you're not caught off guard when people ask you those questions. So the things that people will ask you, I just want to throw those out there. People ask you, tell me about ODU. I've never heard of that place. Okay, tell me about ODU. Was that asked you? So people will say, tell me about ODU. What was your experience like there? People ask you about most meaningful experiences in any stage of your life. That's always gonna that's gonna be asked frequently. People ask you about your passions. What do you like to do? It's like going on a date. It's like your first date. Like, what do you like to do? It's this kind of thing. But this is what you do. The key is to be poised, to be confident. He's sitting up straight. He's doing all the things you're supposed to do. A lot of people, I think, the couple of tips I would have. A lot of people bring up portfolios. It's just a leather-bound kind of like a notebook with like a legal pad in it, right? So you just do that so you can take notes on things. You can write down things. Bring questions. I think that if you've looked on the website, research the school. Like, what do you know about our new curriculum? People want to know that you like looked into their school. And they might not ask you that, but when at the end, if they ask you, don't ask questions just because. Come up with some really sincere questions that you'd like to hear from a senior faculty member or a faculty member, and questions for students. See, he has this thing just like this. So that's what you bring. And have those questions kind of written down, because sometimes off the top of your head it's not great. So just be like, look, say, oh, these are the couple of questions I had from faculty, like, ask any kind of interesting question. But don't sound like you're asking it just to be asking a question. Have those questions kind of ready. And kind of look up the school. Also, what I would say is kind of look in the news and things like that and kind of see kind of what the state of medicine is at the time. It would be crazy to be like the year after the Affordable Care Act gets passed and not know anything about it. You know what I mean? It's something that's changed a lot. Those are my tips for interviewing. Oh, the other thing, I'm wearing don't do this, all right? If you're at an interview, don't wear one of these. All right, that looks flashy. That takes attention away. I'm flashy, so I can wear it, but I don't wear it in interviews. No, but yeah, don't wear like a handkerchief either. All right, so that's basically the mock interview. All right.